Hi, everybody, and welcome to what day is it? The Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, A Big and Furry Bovine. Joining us today on the panel, Brian and Jake and Rox and Rick and Tony the Calf. How is everybody doing?
Better than Kobe.
Doing fine, thanks.
Brian, we're going to go with that already.
It took 20 seconds for a bad taste Kobe comment,
I got him. I got a good Kobe impersonation. Want to see it?
Yeah, sure.
Hold on, let me turn my camera on.
Okay, wait. Got to go full screen with this.
Oh, whoop.
Full screen. There it is! Ladies and gentlemen, the outstanding
Comedic stylings of Tony the Calf.
Yeah. I mean, that is a lot like my Freddie Mercury impression. But at any rate, that is
mine's not totally accurate. I'm not in pieces, so let's.
One thing that I do want to say.
We're awful people.
Yeah, I know. The horrible part of the story was that he was reading A Farewell to Arms. No, okay, I'm not going to get sucked into this, but the thing is to remember about the NBA fraternity is a very, very small fraternity. And I mean, when you're dealing with people who have made it as far as anyone who's in the NBA, it's a small number. But when you start taking a look at the really elite players in the history of the game, I mean, you can name them basically from generation to generation or from decade to decade. If you're looking at, Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s and in the 70s, maybe you want to say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And if you want to say the 80s, it would be Bird and Magic, And then it was later in the 80s, it would be Michael Jordan. And then the 90s brought on, Shaq and Kobe and, that the whole group there. And then the 2000s, ushered in D-Wade and LeBron. And, the faces of the game changed, but the players who are the greatest players in the game, it's such a small percentage that when somebody passes tragically the way that Kobe did, it's just really, really difficult for the players in the league. And you saw all of the things that the teams did during the game, taking 24-second violations, which is interesting. The Cavaliers didn't play and they still took one. So,
but not as bad as the white girls that Kobe Bryant has anally destroyed.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to get into and we will talk a little bit about the reality versus the memories of people. But what I will say is this, is that players and fans become bonded. Guys who win championships, especially in big cities like Los Angeles, these people are remembered and commemorated. And a lot of basketball players who played in the NBA have passed away, but this was a shock because 41 years of age and the way it happened was way too soon. And you can imagine your lives, if you're watching the program, anyone who's, basically Rick could relate to this, what would you have missed in your life if you'd have died at 41? I mean, it's a tragedy that there is no second act to the man's life. And for that reason alone, it's a sad day. As far as Kobe Bryant and the game, you're going to be reading a lot of stuff, okay? You're going to have people saying GOAT. You're going to have people saying, that he was the best at this or that. And Bill Livingston, who was the former writer, for the Plain Dealer, stated something that I thought was brave under the circumstances, pointing out that Kobe really was just not even in his top 10 in the history of NBA players, which is a pretty brave thing to say, but people are really going overboard with effusive praise for a person who had questionable things occur in their lives and had feuds with teammates, and what I would
Kobe, how my ass taste?
yeah, I mean, here's the deal. Kobe, to me, if I were to analyze him in the history of the NBA, I would say the first guy who had the unstoppable fade was Jordan. Jordan could, get separation, and he was a deadly shooter. And Kobe Bryant sharpened that move to a point of, mind-boggling proportions. He was so dedicated to the offensive craft of basketball. He ushered in a generation of fans that really appreciate the offensive side of the ball. If you go back into my generation, we had guys like Dennis Johnson, who played for the Celtics and for the Supersonics, who were defensive guys who really got credit for being incredible defensive players. But when the 90s came in and the entire sensibilities changed, it became a high-flying culture. And part of that was the playground basketball, specifically Rucker Park in New York, that, and players who never made the NBA, like Earl the Goat Manigault, who was seriously the king of playground basketball. And if you talk to some of the greatest players who played the game, they'll talk about Earl Manigault, who ended up, unfortunately, on drugs and never made it to the NBA. But Kobe was offense, and he was a guy with the ball in his hands. He could score from virtually anywhere, and he was a guy who was a volume shooter and a guy who could get into a groove, as attested by his 81-point performance. He was a guy who could single-handedly bury you if he got hot, and he was a guy who could literally tell you what he was going to do, and you still couldn't stop it, because he just had an incredible knack for getting that separation. And if you overcommitted to the fade, he could go around you. I never considered Kobe Bryant to be the ultimate high flyer. He was, however, a huge offensive weapon. On the other side of the coin, playing for an organization like the Lakers for his entire career, Kobe Bryant was part of a winning organization from the get-go when he sat on a bench when he was 19 years old. And he worked his way onto the floor. And by the time Shaq arrived, it became a huge dynamic duo. The two men never really saw eye to eye, unfortunately, and so there was this me thing going on between Shaq and Kobe. And part of the thing with Kobe was that me was important. That's part of the generation of fans, and with the ball in his hands and scoring the rock. And, I saw Kobe as kind of a selfish player, and as he got older, he took the Lakers to the woodshed. He could have taken a step back and accepted less money and had a better team surrounding him. But as he got old and he faded quickly, he insisted on max payment at the end of Dr. Jerry Buss's tenure as the owner and operator of the Los Angeles Lakers. And they were not going to let him go anywhere else, and they paid him the maximum amount of money. His body broke down, and the team couldn't make payroll very well, and it set off a literal 10-year plunge into hell. And Kobe, for the most part, was responsible for, not caving in and giving ground. And then on top of that, there were problems in the front office with the ownership change to Jeannie Buss, who was a moron, to, the Phil Jackson thing and that whole debacle with her and him. It became a laughing stock. And the sad part and the ironic part is the day after LeBron James passed him as number 3 on the all-time scoring list that this would happen, and that Kobe would never live to see the Los Angeles Lakers return to greatness. And in the year that LeBron and AD came to Los Angeles, he would never live to see that. So, and then, as Brian would point out, the horrible situation in Colorado with somebody who obviously had instabilities, a woman who had problems, and he took advantage of that, and then bought his wife a huge diamond as if to say, I'm sorry for having done that to that woman in that hotel
$12 million.
Yeah, I mean, it was a trying time. Nobody said that Kobe Bryant was a perfect person, and in remembering him, I don't think that to deify athletes is a good thing. I do think, on the other hand, that a good perspective of where he belongs and places in the game, and he's not an original like Jordan, and he's not an original like LeBron. What he is the craftsmanship of Jordan, literally honed to a maniacal degree, to the point where he was so good at that facet of the game that it was entertaining to watch, and it captured the imagination of a whole video game generation of people who wanted their NBA basketball to really feel more like a video game. And the whole idea of somebody being en fuego, I mean, if anybody, Kobe Bryant, it was the personification of en fuego on a basketball court. He could just go off at any time. We'll start with Rick. Rick, what is your feeling about Kobe and his place in the game?
Well, he's among the top. He is just barely below Michael Jordan as far as I'm concerned, with regards to just the tenacity that he had for playing the game. I mean, if he was determined to do something, he was going to, by God, get there no matter what. And maybe he doesn't get credit, but I thought he was a pretty good defender as well. I think he had some, I think he was some all defense teams awards to his credit. I don't know if he had as many as Michael Jordan, but I think he took pride in his defense as well. But offense was his calling card.
And intensity is a good word, because I mean he had a reputation for not being easy to get along with, because that intensity obviously could be interpreted a different way. We'll move over to Rox. What is your feeling about this, Rox?
Just a horrible tragedy. I'll tell you what, I wish that I had gotten a Kobe Bryant action figure now. So I know those things are selling for hundreds of dollars now. I know that's horrible to say, but that's one of the thoughts that went through my mind. But yeah, in my mind, Kobe is one of the greatest.
Yeah, I mean, and I think everybody would have him as far as on a list. If I had to say who the greatest players are of all time, there's going to be the argument about Jordan and LeBron forever, because you're either on one side of the fence or another. And I'm biased, of course, because of the championship in Cleveland. And the folklore surrounding Jordan is just, because he was really the first absolute endorsement megastar. So, you're going to, but you go from there, and, there are some people who will talk about Oscar Robertson. There are other people who will talk, about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There are people who will say Magic Johnson is a 6'9" prototype point guard. So, Jake, what is your feeling of Kobe's place in the game?
Well, how I view it is, I want a top 5 and a good backup. He is definitely the top two guard. So, and his career is definitely a top 10 player in terms of a basketball team. I also view Kobe's accomplishments in the era he played in more challenging than Jordan's in a way, because they had the zone defenses. You could double him in the post. When Jordan played, they had the illegal defense on his side, so you really couldn't double him till he dribbled the ball. It was much tougher. So Kobe had to get his shots off in tighter spaces than Jordan ever had to do, and I think he deserves a lot of props for that part of his game.
Yeah, and I think those are points well taken. Brian, we'll give you an open forum.
Well, I I would say he's probably in the top 15 of greatest players. He's definitely one of the best as far as being a shooting. If you're pigeonholing him into one position as a shooting guard, he's probably one of the two or three tops. With Pistol Pete Maravich and some and Michael Jordan, he could get a shot off from practically anywhere on the floor. He had a mid range. He developed a mid range game, and it was really interesting to listen to. Freddie Kitchens had brought him in to talk to the team, talk to the Browns before the Denver game, and to hear what he actually told the team. Someone had recorded it, so of course there were things bleeped out, but to hear him talk about doing the same routine from the time he was 8 years old till the time he walked off the court after his last game, as far as what he did training wise, and how he talked about watching these kids on YouTube that could dribble 5 basketballs, and he's like, well, that's great, but you only play with one. So that was kind of interesting to hear his take on it, and they got a chance to really talk about his. He really got delved into his mentality, what he called his Mamba mentality,
Right.
and the tenacity, and how hard he really fought to be as good as he was.
And again, there is a sacrifice that all athletes make to be the best at what they do, and nobody can say that Kobe didn't put the work in. And it's just a very sad day when something like this happens. I want to move off of this and move on to the "I told you so" segment of the program with the news about Kareem Hunt. This is. I can't begin to tell you how troubled some of these people are who play the game of football. If you are living in a cave and you didn't read about this, the dash cam video of his arrest has audio in which Kareem Hunt admits that he would fail a drug test if it were administered right then and there, which is going to be an immediate suspension by the NFL because he was his own witness against himself. Also, an open bottle of vodka in the car, and what would, in my mind, show mental instability. Man, I've been through a lot, Hunt said to the officer. Officer, I've been through a lot. It stresses me out. I lost everything already, sir. I'm just trying to be in my hometown and chill. All right. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is the guy who arrested him is a big Browns fan. He admonished Hunt for risking his NFL career again and scolded him for pissing on the second chance the Browns have given him. Here's what the officer says on the audio side. You had a good second part of the year. You don't want to screw that up over some weed. That was when he admitted that he'd fail a drug test if administered. Look at the Ravens running back. What happened to him? Ray Rice, the officer says. I mean, dude, I'm shocked that you even got a second chance. Can you imagine a police officer saying this to him? Which elicited a response. And this is a response that it will make you scratch your head. Hunt admitted that not being with the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl this week had gotten to him. It hurts my soul, he said. You don't even understand. I've been fighting a lot of shit lately. It still hurts me to this day. Quote, unquote. you know something? The reason you're not with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you dumb fuck, is because you are addicted to substances, you have a problem, you're not seeking help, and the league is giving you, like they gave Josh Gordon, too many fucking opportunities. And the bottom line is that you could have been with the Chiefs, but you decided to whack a woman around. You know, you could have gone into a whole new coaching staff away from Freddie Kitchens, clean as a whistle, but you have to speed with weed and an open alcohol container. And on top of it, admit your own guilt on a dash cam video. You might as well have put it on Instagram, you dumb fuck. Okay, that's in case you didn't get it the first time. And then you're going to tell the world that what crushed your spirit is that you're not a Kansas City Chief? Well, you know, let me introduce you to my two friends. Okay? It is ridiculous. And like I told y'all Friday, cut bait. What are you going to get for a guy who admits to this shit? I mean, you wonder, even at 24 years of age, if the guy is suffering some form of brain damage. I don't know what load he's carrying. The guy's a multi-millionaire, and he had a second chance to become a big, and he was going into free agency. You can't possibly commit suicide in a more convincing way. You couldn't. All he had to do was keep his nose clean, and somebody, not the Browns, but somebody would have offered him massive amounts of cash. But no. And if he had any self-control whatsoever, he could have held off, made the multi-millions of dollars, gotten his down payment, and then weeded himself to death, which is what Josh Gordon would keep doing. You know, it's like, well, I'm not going to get the biggest contract, but if I can get a few million more, that'll keep me in weed and alcohol for endless amount of time, because I have a good relationship with my distributor.
And pay the back child support.
Exactly. But the problems with these guys never end. And you can't focus on your work. You can't focus on your work. And the other quote that was just absolutely, I mean, and I want to look for this quote if I can find it. It was something to the effect of, oh yeah, it's the off season, so I'm just having fun. I mean, that's what I call the Cyndi Lauper excuse, you know? Kareem just wants to have fun.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to end up like Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah.
And just think, he said he wanted to be in his hometown. All the trouble he's been in is from his hometown.
Covered in tattoos with rubber bands sticking out of your face.
Everybody knew that he was supposed to stay away from Toledo. Everybody knew. Anybody who is trying to overcome problems knows that you can't go back with the old crew. You'll fall into old ways. But they all do it anyway. Him coming back to Cleveland has destroyed his football career. I want to have nothing to do with him. And the fact of the matter is that it all goes downhill from here anyway, because it's just going to be a series of things. And even if it's not a series of things, let him play someplace else. Somebody else can have him. And if he does great, goody gumdrops. The bottom line is the Cleveland Browns cannot afford to bring on another guy who wastes their time. We need to have our two-back backfield already established before the season begins, before the the preseason begins. We can't afford to start out with suspensions again. We don't pay him to play 8 games a year. It just,
Didn't he mention that the backpack that had some of the marijuana and the vodka was his brother's? So in essence, didn't he just throw his brother under the bus as well?
Yeah, I mean, everything. I mean, Greg, it's all online. You see, the beautiful thing is the police dash cam, you can go and watch the video on Cleveland.com or ESPN. It's pathetic. I mean, there ain't no privacy anymore. If you don't remember, if they catch you for speeding in today's America, they can search your car. If you're speeding, that gives them the right to look at anything they want in your trunk or whatever they want. And they can do a complete search of you and your car just for speeding.
Anywhere that you can reach, that is within reach of you in your car.
And the other thing is, if you don't wear a seatbelt, if they see you're not wearing a seatbelt, that's another reason they can pull you over. And this is how they got around profiling, folks. This is America, home of the free, land of the brave. That's America. They wanted to go in because they couldn't profile, you know. It was like, well, you know, we suspect that guy's a drug mule coming up over the Mexican border to San Diego. They couldn't profile people. Hey, that's an Hispanic guy. I bet he's carrying drugs, you know. Couldn't do that. But hey, that guy's not wearing a seatbelt. And he's Hispanic and he's driving a 55 Chevy, man. But we're not profiling. No. But you got to be smarter than that. And Rox is right. The guy's an idiot. The guy's a box of rocks. The guy ends up speeding and gives them every reason in the world to search and look. Gosh almighty, look what they found.
Okay, what was he going at? Like, was he going like 10, 15 over?
77 and a 60.
Okay, yeah.
17 over.
You could, that's like 4 points on your license. So, there's no getting away with that. Did you smell weed? That's another bad thing. You don't want to smell weed when you open a car?
He had weed in 3 places. He had weed in 3 places. I mean, Jesus.
Instead of click it or ticket, it was token or ticket.
My God. There's Steven with us. Hi, Steven.
Oh, that was fast. I didn't think I was going to be buzzed in this quick.
Yeah, well, you were buzzed in. So, I'm on the ball today. I got game.
You know, oh, Mr. Moo had to help you out in the likes. I said, we got to start getting Moohead's channel up more likes. I want 15 likes per video. We're at 12. Let's go.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm just grateful people are watching this shit, you know? I mean, I went through many years where, like, there's like 12 people watch my show. I mean, there were times when it was like, and that's where the expression boutique, you know, podcast came from for me. It was like, me and my co-host outnumbered the listeners. I mean, it was like, you know, lean times, folks, lean beef. I'm grateful that people take the time to watch. And go ahead.
I just wanted to say something about Kobe Bryant. I mean, sure. I don't want to repeat what everyone said. I just want to say, after the incident took place around 9:30 yesterday, man, I was so depressed. I went all day, barely eating, couldn't get any rest. I was very stressed, and I've never even like hung out with the guy ever. Like, it impacted me that badly. I think I haven't seen so much media coverage on someone's death since Michael Jackson back in 2009.
Yeah, and me personally, I mean, I gasped. I mean, I mean, it's like, wow, that, you know. But that is the thing that, and I tell this to people all the time. There is not a script of life. Life is completely unscripted. You cannot be prepared for stuff. You just can't. And this is just another thing. And it was funny because earlier today, Rox and I were talking about, you know, the helicopter, because there's more to be said about this, because the thing was climbing and it had plunged 4,000 feet and then was trying to climb, and then it, you know, it exploded at the side of a hill. And they're going to be questioning the pilot. It was a foggy day, and the credentials of that pilot are going to come into question. And I'll let Rox say what she said regarding the use of a helicopter. Explain.
Well, in LA, it's kind of the trendy thing now for rich people to take helicopters when they have to go across town, as opposed to being stuck in traffic for a couple of hours. So for him to have flown a helicopter, I mean, that's not that unusual for the rich and famous of LA.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Mr. Moohead. Also, to let you know that I had a buddy of mine who flew in a helicopter in Vegas, and he told me that the standards were you were only supposed to have 4 people in the helicopter when he got in there. So when he heard the story at 9, he's like, "I think that's too many people, dude." Because when I got in there, like we couldn't have no more than 4. So
Well, it's by weight. So they were transporting 2 kids that equal 1 adult.
That would be just me. I could only be the only person on the helicopter.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Well, there was audio. And
But the LAPD also released a statement that they grounded all of their helicopters because of the fog.
Yeah. It was simply too thick. Nothing was allowed up in the air that morning.
what were you gonna say, Jake?
there was audio, and the last thing it picked up before it spun out and crashed was, "Aren't we a little low?" And then you just heard maybe, and then you just heard boom.
Wow.
So all you heard was a crash. So yeah, they were flying too low. I don't think they knew where they were.
Yeah. I don't know. Does anybody remember the song DOA by Blood Rock?
I remember the song. I can't remember how it goes though. But
Okay, I'm
it was
gonna
very,
do it
very
for
popular
you.
back in college.
Yeah.
Hey, there was also another helicopter crash where like 30 Marines and 1 sailor died too yesterday. That's crazy. I saw that earlier on Facebook.
All right, the DOA song. Here we go. I remember we were flying low and hit something in the air. Yeah, that was the Blood Rock DOA chorus. Yeah. Yeah, that is the grossest song. I try to lift my arm, but there's no feeling. I turn to look, and there is nothing there. I mean, it is the grossest song I've ever heard in my life. So go on YouTube now and check out Blood Rock DOA. But there's going to be more said, and it comes down to the percentages of things. I would rather wait 2 hours in traffic.
Yeah.
Than to go up because once you're up in a helicopter, that thing goes down dead
Hey,
deep.
Mr. Moohead, and then we hear all these stories about these private planes or these private, choppers going down, and it just makes you more scared about wanting to fly in a chopper. Like I've always wanted to fly in one, but now I hear all these stories. I'm like, nah, I think I'm pass.
Well, you always hear the argument, the likelihood of you getting in a plane crash is like 100,000 times less than a car crash, but you don't survive a plane crash. So
Exactly. I mean that's.
I mean the numbers don't match up when a fender bender counts as a car crash.
Yeah, and again, it's not that I'm going, ballistic on airlines or anything like that, but I mean, there is a notable history from Buddy Holly on to,
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
small
Before
aircraft,
that,
small aircraft flying in bad weather conditions that result in an unfortunately predictable demise. There is.
it goes all the way back to the Zeppelins.
Yeah.
What was the LSU coach's name? Bo Ryan?
Yeah. Yep. And the Leonard Skinner,
Yeah. Stevie
mean-
Ray Vaughan.
Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean,
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah. Yep. I mean, this is.
Oh yeah, Richie
In
Valens.
that case, that was an overweighted plane.
Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. That was in 1959.
Big Bopper.
Yeah, the Big Bopper. Yeah, the
Yeah.
day music died.
And I guess the way I see it is that there's a risk if you do it, and the real question is how qualified is the pilot, and we're going to find that out. And I sure as hell hope.
Do you think the common denominator is most of these private airliners or these choppers that these pilots fly in these conditions because they don't want to wait the traffic? Like these guys don't want to wait, so they just fly and say fuck it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg,
Well,
you're
in a
dead
lot of the
spot
ca-
on.
In a lot of the cases, like I think this was a Bell helicopter. The avionics has Doppler radar on it, so it's supposed to have like terrain reading radar.
Yeah, I read that the pilot had gotten clearance to fly with instrumentation rather than strictly with visibility, since the visibility was so poor that day.
Oh,
And-
no.
And you know, and this is again a common denominator when accidents happen. Sometimes there's just aircraft failure, and you know, and sometimes it is flyer error, like John Denver flying an ultralight. He had no business flying because he didn't really know where all the switches were, including the gas tank that was divided into two.
I'm wondering
The
is
reason
there
that
any way-
John Denver died, by the way, if you don't know, is that he ran out of gas and plunged to the ground. However, had he studied the plane that he had purchased, he would know that there was a switch directly behind where the pilot's seat was in that ultralight that would have opened up the second tank of gas. He did
Wow.
not know that, and he, in the moment of panic, he didn't open the chute there, and he crashed and died. So sometimes it's pilot error too. There's a whole bunch of possibilities.
Is there any way they can make these choppers safer in the future, where you can like parachute out or anything like that?
Oh God, no!
I don't think you want to do that from a helicopter.
No, yeah.
Especially that blade.
Oh,
Yeah,
You would be
and the
head
blades on the
shoulders-
side.
Yeah, head and shoulders
Yeah.
above the rest. Yeah.
And just think, Kobe made that trip in that helicopter the last 20 years he's been doing it. He bought that a while ago to get to the facility earlier. So the one time it went bad.
Wait a
It
minute.
just takes one time.
Wait a minute. All right. Glenn Miller had his moment on the show too. There's too many examples of this, so I wouldn't do it. But you know, again, it's just the odds catching up. And now I can move on to the third thing, and that is the biggest surprise of the program. I like to save my surprises. Have you ever watched a movie that you knew what was going to happen 30 minutes before it happened, that it just, you know,
No.
you feel like, fuck, what did I waste my time watching this shit for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrew Barry's the GM. Oh, go figure.
I think that one was
3 and 13, here we go. Right back where we started from.
What a fucking cliffhanger, folks.
Yep.
Damn.
Is the title Analytics 2?
Roster? What roster, man? We don't need no stinking roster.
We can all sleep well tonight. Our national crisis is over.
And,
Analytics 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, you know, and you know, and Jeff, that's exactly right. But we knew it was going to be Andrew Barry because they didn't interview any minority head coaches, and you know, when an idiot like Haslam looks like he's, you know, who has a past with a company that didn't have good race relations, he ignores the Rooney Rule. You know what was in his hip pocket. So this was a done deal a long time ago, and don't let him tell you any other way. And you know, it's like people asking, well, is the fact that we don't have a GM going to hurt, our drafting and all this? And it's like, do you really think Andrew Barry knows a goddamn thing about drafting? I mean, please. He deferred to Huey Jackson, for God's sakes, and to Sashi Brown. What the fuck would he know? I mean, yeah, it has nothing to do. I mean, it's going to be more.
Jimmy's going to be running the whole shebang.
That's right. Jimmy
Right off a cliff.
Woo! I think this Manziel guy's got the stuff. He's going to wreck this league. Woo!
Wonder if he's got that homeless guy on speed dial. Need some more input here.
Can they hire Delonte West?
Oh.
No, they need a different redhead. They actually need Yosemite Sam.
Only for offensive coordinator, Jake.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the Delonte thing. I mean, he's the only guy I've seen get beaten worse than the Browns. Okay, if we're gonna really be tasteless, let's just be thoroughly tasteless.
Oh, I don't know. Dooku Kim comes close.
Sink to the bottom here.
Yeah, you know, and everybody's looking forward to Justin Gilbert 2.0, the improved version. Yeah, I mean, it is, yes, Elliot Wolf. This is an interesting thing. They would not name him the general manager because it was perceived that he was Dorsey's right-hand man. How long will Elliot Wolf remain assistant general manager? It is my knowledge that he is ready to become a general manager, and if he has this coming year with the Browns, that'll be the extent of it. If that.
Well,
My feeling is he's going to want to hightail it out of this organization.
He'll be gone before March.
I believe that's the case because he's got to catch on with another organization where there is, you know, mobility upward. He doesn't have that.
And the same with Alonzo Highsmith.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're perceived as Dorsey's right-hand man, what that is code language for the ignorant Southern Hicks as, you know, he's non-analytics, all right? So he was the right-hand man, you know, like Dorsey had a right-hand man. I mean, Dorsey is a one-man show in his mind, you know, and in his car. We can't rewind. He went too far. I mean, I don't really think that Dorsey had any right-hand men, but Elliot Wolf was brought in, and he does have a background in a family that has done traditional general management duties, and I really don't think...
And built winners.
Yeah, I don't think that he has an interest in playing the analytics game with Dee Podesta. So,
you think John Dorsey missed his job with the Browns? He's probably on vacation right now.
say again?
Do you think John Dorsey misses the Browns, or do you think he's enjoying vacation, his retirement?
You know, right now Dorsey is being paid, and he can pick and choose whatever opportunity. And I think that there is enough respect for him that he will he'll find his way into something.
He will.
The problem with Dorsey is that any meddler owner ain't going to have him, because he is a guy who wants to run the show.
Yeah.
And you'll never see a guy like a Jerry Jones or a Jimmy Haslam or, you know, people who are that way put somebody like that in a position where he has the iron fist. Not going to happen. So, you know, I don't know what John Adams is saying here. I don't even know what happened to his accuser. I mean, that, you know, I never thought that there was any attempt. She was a troubled girl. That I know. She had problems. And, you know, it's a lot.
Well, and she was only 18 or 19 at the time. So
Well, I mean,
she'd be in her mid-30s by now.
And I would think that the attorneys for Kobe's estate would squash anything like that. I'm sure she has a gag order in place that will remain in place. So I don't see her coming forward to try to cash in on this. I would be surprised.
Excuse me, this is Mike Tyson. I was wondering if anybody can say Desiree Washington.
Nobody knows where she is, Desiree Washington. She just kind of quietly went away.
I don't know where she was, but I know where I was, and it was inside of her. Deep inside.
You know, the thing is, for all the talk about Desiree Washington, she was still in his room. She went up there. Now, she was naive and thought she was going to get an autograph.
Right.
I gave her an autograph, all right.
They knew what they were doing. They knew what it was all about.
So she assumed that he could write?
Yeah, that's a leap of faith.
What the hell?
I just put an X. I just put an X on a piece.
Just like Bill Cosby, all those women knew when they were coming in and out of his room at all hours of the night. They knew what was going on.
She wanted 12 inches, so I fucked her 4 times and punched her in the nose. That's how you get 12 inches and bleed from Mike Tyson. Thank you.
Yeah, it's inappropriate, but it's funny. I like to be inappropriate only because the times call for it. I mean, but no, I mean, I really don't know. I mean, you never heard from Desiree Washington again.
Right.
I mean, whatever happened to her?
Yeah, you Google her now, you're not going to come up with much of anything on her. Nothing recent.
I mean, it's, you know.
Maybe there'll be a slow day one day at TMZ and they'll, do a little digging.
Well, you know,
No, Elmer Fudd would be up here. But yes, Mike Tyson kind of has the lisp. You got to get the lisp in there, and the there. It's because he's from New York. You see, so it's kind of like Woody Allen except with a lisp. So this is what you get, and me, I do a one-man play. I don't know if you've ever seen me do the one-man play, but I'm going to do that before I fade into Bolivian.
That's not funny.
Yeah. Kill the web.
all right. Next is, let's take a look at that Browns coaching staff, shall we? Offensive coordinator, vacant. Quarterbacks coach, vacant. Running backs coach, Stump Mitchell. Offensive line, Bill Callahan. Tight ends, Drew Petzing. Wide receivers and passing game coordinator, Chad O'Shea. Defensive coordinator, but will be Joe Woods. Defensive line coach, waiting on Joe Woods. Linebackers coach, still waiting on Joe Woods. And defensive backs, vacant, waiting for Joe Woods. So there you have it, Cleveland fans. Oh no, special teams Mike Prefer is back, and special teams assistant Doug Coleman, and the late Casey Coleman. All right, so we've got what we need, kind of.
Not to be confused with Corey Coleman.
That's right.
Well, at least the Browns settled their
Or Gary Coleman.
Yeah, how about this after the fact? Hey, Mary Kay, one of my favorite columns on Cleveland.com. Hey, Mary Kay, without a GM in place, will the Browns have enough time to prepare for the NFL draft? And that's the question. And it's
What should this year be any different?
Brad Belomo in Hudson, Ohio. Hey, Brad, Mary Kay says, you stupid fuck, you didn't realize that this guy was going to be the GM from the beginning? Yeah. I mean, by the way, Elliot Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith are on the road again, and they're scouting as usual, attending the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. And that's where Jimmy will hire the hitman that will wipe them out in Mobile. And might be Freddie Kitchens, I just want to go back home one more time. Could you imagine Freddie Kitchens in New York? Can you imagine? I don't know. What the hell?
You'd have the only house in New York with wheels.
If I go to Chinatown, am I going to get that coronavirus? I ain't going to be eating no Peking duck because that could take my eyes. I don't understand why people do a Peking duck. I would rather have the duck dead than have that thing going at my eyes, Like, we need this.
A little strange. We have a running backs coach named Stump.
No, it would be better to
a
have
little
an
disconcerting.
Well, we had a head coach who was stumped, so why not?
We had Coach Chud.
Yeah, oh God.
Yeah, that's true.
And here's another thing that it's get to know the new Cleveland Browns GM. He was a Colts scouting assistant in 09-10. He was a pro scout from 11 to 15, 2016 to 2018, the VP of player personnel, who did very little, and then Eagles VP of football operations last year. And boy, he's the youngest general manager in professional football. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited. My dick is hard a second time today, and that doesn't usually happen at 62. Shut up. Don't take me at my word. This is an example of what's the word? Hyperbole.
Ross, would you like to do the honors?
Hyperbole, yes. You know, hyperbole would be like, no, my 14 inches got really hard. 6 times today. That's hyperbole. Yeah.
Or in some circles, creative writing.
All right.
Here's my other favorite article on Cleveland.com. Notable Clevelanders predict Super Bowl, so final score. And then I'm looking at who are these people? It's like these are I don't live in Cleveland, okay? I want to make it clear that I moved in 1985 out of Northeast Ohio. But damn, here are some of the list of the notable Clevelanders. Brian Anderson, business development manager in Cleveland Heights. I don't even know who for, what he does. John Beeline. He's not going to be there long, and he's a Michigan guy. He's not even a Cleveland guy. Nick Camino, sports, TV3, KYC. Notable. Pete Elliott, U.S. Marshal. Fred Garvin, male prostitute. How about Jason Frazier, meteorologist? God. I want to be Al Roker.
Where's Tony Grossi from?
I want to be Al Roker so bad. I've gained all this weight. That's Jason Frazier, KYC TV meteorologist. There's more. Mike Gansey. Actually, Mike's a nice guy. I had him on the program. But he's an assistant general manager for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But notable, John Gorman. Remember John Gorman from WMMS? The Buzzard. Yeah. And now he is the chief content officer for Wow Media LLC. What that means when you're a chief content officer, there is no content anymore, so you don't do anything. And he's notable. Is
that station even around anymore?
MMS?
Yeah.
Beats the fuck out of me.
I don't think so. I think there's a gap, too. I think they may have meant to say not able.
I can tell you the day that MMS died, and that's when they played Michael Jackson. And when that happened, they ruined a radio station that had a reputation of cool. And then, you know what they started doing? They started showing their disc jockeys on their TV commercials, and they looked like your dad, and they were fucking dorks. And like all of the cool factor just went to hell in a handbasket. It's like, that's what Kid Leo looks like? Fuck. And then the Get Down guy, it's like, God, Grandpa, chill out, man. You're gonna explode your goiter. Make it stop. John Henson, not the Muppets guy, the Cavalier center who's hurt all the time, okay? I mean, John Henson is a notable Clevelander. That really makes me feel, and all of Northeast Ohio, feel good. And then, get this, Jonathan Rosovsky. And it's like they have to explain that he's a Northeast Ohio-based custom sneaker designer who makes shoes for Mike Clevenger, Carlos Carrasco, and the late Jason Kipnis. And that's a notable Clevelander. There's more. Farmer Lee Jones, a Food Network personality. I watch the Food Network, and I've never seen Farmer Lee Jones before. All right? And looking at a picture of him with his red bow tie.
The other guy from Cleveland is on
Michael Simons. Michael Simons, I know, sure. But, this guy, he's got a red bow tie. He's got overalls on, and I wish he'd go into a helicopter, for God's sakes. Justin Curlin, Vice President of Sales of the Brew Kettle, the Brew Kettle in Middleburg Heights. Now, I mean, what in the fuck is a Brew Kettle in Middleburg Heights? It can't be, How about Greg Levy, the co-owner of Red, the steakhouse? Finally, we get to Kevin Love. We know him. Then there's Jimmy Malone, WMJI personality, and the founder of the Jimmy Malone Scholarship Program. I guess Jimmy Malone would be the founder of the Jimmy Malone Scholarship Program. Make it stop, dear God. Here's a guy who's the owner of Gunselman's Tavern, but his name's not Gunselman, so he bought the fucking business, Joseph McDonough. This is horrible. Tony Musacchio, roving restaurant reporter on WERE 1490 AM. He's got fewer listeners than I do.
All right.
WERE 1490 AM. Please.
All that roving must have paid off then.
He's a roving reporter because he's homeless.
Or a rover reporter.
Yeah. Larry Nance Jr. I have nothing to say.
Roving forward for the Cavaliers.
I had nothing to say. You never know where he is at any given moment. He's still looking for his 3-point shot, you know? Here you go. Otto Orff, former Cleveland Crunch goalie. Oh, I remember him. Uh-huh.
Any Lake Erie Monsters in there?
Actually, my mom might.
Did they ask the Lake Erie Monsters?
If he played in the late 50s to early 60s, she probably saw him play.
And now I'm down to my final one.
Yes.
Devin Polk. His rapper name is Paper Polk.
A goalie for a hockey team.
Crazy Eyes Killer. I mean, what the fuck? What the fuck? I mean, who's ever heard of a rapper named Paper Polk? What kind of a name is that?
Now, what kind of name is that?
I don't know, but I wish it would stop. I mean, there's no cool in that. I mean, Paper Polk, I mean, what's he going to do? Is he going to deliver me my Sarasota Bradenton Herald Tribune to my front door? What in the fuck is Paper Polk?
No,
And what is Paul?
that's MC Paper Route. you got him confused. He has his brother, Paper Cut.
Oh my God. I just can't take it.
So that's Cleveland's description of notable.
I mean, and that's what they could come up with, you know?
You could. I mean, Steve Harvey could be one. You just take the opposite because he gets confused sometimes.
And I'll tell you something else. If that's all they could come up with, here's what really happened. Here's what really happened. Hey, Colin, no click, you know. Anyone, you know, it's like, call Larry. He might do it. You know, Larry Nance Jr. might do it. I mean, you know, and Kevin Love, he's leaving Cleveland. He won't be a Cleveland notable much longer. You know?
Artie's still alive. Do you have his number?
Yeah, well, the trade deadline's on February 6th, so the Cavs got, about a little over a week to trade him?
And you know, I used to do this, D-Cup, Toe Juice. During a Browns game, I used to do a running commentary, but you know, my running commentary was not normal. I mean, I was watching Crazy Dog doing something similar, except mine was demented. You know, it was like the reactions. I remember the one time that I was doing one of those, and I'm going to admit something and I shouldn't do this because it's going to make me a lot like Kareem Hunt. But in the early years of the broadcast, I actually, and I did it for the guys overseas, seriously. We had a number of people in the military who couldn't watch the Browns, so I would actually show the streams, you know, through the show. And it was illegal, but, you know, back then it was kind of the Wild West. Now they come to your home and they demand money and they rape your wife and dog. So in those days, you get away with that stuff. Or is it rape the dog and take your wife? Whatever.
I was going to say, which order was that?
I'm not sure.
They raped the horses and rode off on the women.
But the ultimate moment was an Eric Metcalf moment in which I had to take a piss. Okay? This is a true story so that I can divulge this about myself. And I didn't want to miss any of the game. And I said, folks, I got to run and take a piss. I run and take a piss, and they cut back to the goddamn game, and the guy returns the goddamn punt 78 yards for a touchdown. For the rest of the season that I did the games, people say, hey, Moohead, go and take a piss. That became, you know, the rallying point for all Cleveland Browns fans. But I can't do that anymore because it wasted my voice. I was so fed up. I mean, look at the 60 minutes I give you twice a week. My voice sometimes strains when I'm saying things like "you dumb fuck," but I'm accenting it in a certain way, or you know. If I give Timmy Bartholow. I mean, things like that. Did you see the reaction? I mean, wait. Okay.
Are there any T-shirts out there of "Hey Moo, go out and take a piss"? Those
Yeah.
might be collector's items.
Oh my God.
Hey, Mr. Mood, do you think the death of Kobe's going to kind of shadow the NFL Super Bowl? Because everyone's saying that it's, you know, people are going to be too depressed to want to watch it.
You know, one thing that I can tell you is that people have a short memory. And I've seen it because I've seen people who've done horrible things forgiven, or, you know, they're running a poll on Cleveland.com now, and 61% of the people want to keep Kareem Hunt. You know, people have very short memories today. We're looking in the era of sound bites, and everything is like, you know, 10-second Tom. People don't have any collective memories. No, by the time the Super Bowl comes up, I mean, they'll do something and they'll honor Kobe. They'll have like, in honor of Kobe, they'll take his uniform number. And what was his uniform number?
24.
24. Early on was 8.
8, yeah. They won't do 24. They do 8, the original, and have 8 helicopters fly overhead, you know, so before they... I know, it's just wrong on so many levels. It's like, I could have done something like this, you know, when Tony was doing his impression of Kobe, I could have been... Chopper. Forget it. I didn't do that. It's wrong on so many levels. But at any rate, no, I really... Rox is looking at me like, oh, no, you didn't.
No, I think by next season it'll be forgotten. And it's unfortunate, but I guess that's how life goes, you know.
Oh, she's got the head bobbing and everything, man. Yeah, she's got more head movement than Joe Frazier. Yeah. I'm not talking about that kind of head movement. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Woodhead Radio. No, I don't think it's going to affect the Super Bowl. You know, and if people are still depressed about Kobe's death at the Super Bowl, get a fucking life. Be great at something yourself, but you know, don't. This is a bit much. You know. Everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll be back again on Friday. Tomorrow's a big day for me. I'm getting dental work. But I'll be recovered, I'm sure, by Friday to be able to do more vocal.
What kind of dental work are you getting, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm getting decay of a tooth and crowns put in. So I'll have temporary crowns, and so I can be king for a day. And then I go back and they'll put in the permanent crowns. So I would, and it's 2 teeth that have to get the decay off. And obviously the decay is not good because they wouldn't be having to put crowns on. You know, they're not putting fillings in, folks. They're just putting a crown over it. So they're going to reshape the tooth. So I'm going to be, that's another good impression that I do.
Thanks, Steve.
You got enough Novocaine in your mouth?
Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll be back again Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Moo.